Good afternoon and welcome to Lunchtime Series with Kevin, where we add value to people's lives, happening every day at 12 o'clock on ebizradio.com. Today on our Lunchtime coaching segment, we're chatting to Sophie Bruas. She's an executive coach, mentor, and coach supervisor at Achille Vantage. But she's here to tell us more about a wonderful convention coming up and all about the African Executive Coaching Council. Welcome to today's coaching segment. Sophie, how are you doing?
I'm very well. Thank you very much for having me, Kevin.
Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. I know you're busy. I know it's scheduling and all that good stuff. But Sophie, don't you want to first kick it off by telling us more about who you are and all about you?
Yeah. So my name is Sophie Bruas, and I am an executive coach. I am here in Kenya. I've been living in Africa for 30 years now, and in Kenya, namely 15. I'm also a coach, a mentor coach, and a coach supervisor. So and facilitator of training, and so I dedicate quite a lot of my working time and beyond to coaching.
Ah, fantastic. So, Sophie, one of the reasons why we decided to have this chat is there's sort of something coming up, which we're going to talk about a little bit later. But don't you want to speak to us about the African Executive Coaching Council? Who is this council, and tell us more about the AECC.
So the AECC is a council that has for aim to promote and encourage people to discover more about coaching and to be a catalyst.
Yes.
In bringing people together around coaching. So there is a huge aspect that is about talking and teaching and telling more about coaching, but also putting people in touch.
Ah, yes.
And this convention is really looking at doing this too. So with the convention, what we want is to create a dialogue is between the user of coaching, the buyer of coaching services, and the coaches, and to together create a little bit more for shaping how we want executive coaching to look like from the continent.
Yeah, and I mean that's such an interesting take on it. Why do you think it's a necessary conversation around the African way of coaching? We do a lot of westernized kind of approach to coaching. But what is your insights? I mean, you mentioned spending 30 years in Africa, all over Africa, working in different environments, working with different cultures, different people. Why do you think this is an important conversation to be having at this point?
Well, what we realize is that as we progress in that convention that is about in a week time, is in a week time, and is that all the conversation we have around that convention really shows me that we are operating in silo. So we have connection with the Western world around coaching, and often the operator of our training are coming from the UK, from the US, from other parts of the world. But now coaching has been going on for between 20 years, maybe plus, on the continent, and it's time to that we define how we want coaching to look like from the continent. So I think that's an important point. I think we are living in a huge continent, and we have specificity that are that belong to every culture and every context and every countries. But is there one that will say, oh, in Africa maybe we need to look at it in more details to say how do we adapt coaching while we're keeping the standard of excellence.
So, I mean, one of the things that we mentioned when you and I spoke, give us an example of that, because we obviously think, from a coaching perspective, we generally make the assumption that the approach to coaching is there's just one certain way. And this is the conversation that we really need to be having, is how do you connect with people from a different geographical perspective, right? Considering the economical environment, the political environment. Talk to us about some of those obvious concerns and things that we need to also consider from an African context.
Yeah. So I think we had discussed a little bit, you and I, around the aspect of resilience, and
Yes.
this is not a new concept. The resilience concept. We have Dr. Carol Pemberton that is joining us on the convention to talk about it. But I think it has a specific light in regards to Africa, because it's a continent where we are extremely resilient and we are constantly challenged to maintain that resilience. And so when we think about coaching and resilience, I think that we could really explore to what does that mean for the leaders in Africa? What does that mean when we are constantly experiencing that, where in the society do not have the same safety net that they might have? I'm thinking of Europe or other part of the world. So how is that affecting how people lead their teams, and how coaching needs to embrace that concept, and the coaches to adapt also to the need of the clients. So resilience is one of them. I think it's an important theme. Another one, for example, in society that are collectivist society, the concept of team is that affected by how we are culturally wired in Africa. So that's another aspect that I think I would be curious to hear whether people think that it has an impact on how they coach, or people think that it should have an impact on how they want to be coached. A practical example will be, for example, the cultural aspect of power distance. We discussed that again when we think about how people are very taught and raised and in respecting the elders, in the hierarchy is really important, and suddenly they have to evolve in a team that is shifting from a structure, a top-down structure to more project and flat team. It has some massive cultural adaptation that needs to happen, and I don't think that is existing in other parts of the world. So those are several few aspects. The role of women is pretty important, and how do we look at that from this part of the continent? Other aspect of diversity is quite hot topic. It's interesting to hear Black Lives Matters, but it's very different when you are in different part of Africa. That will be another aspect that we can explore.
Yeah. I mean, one of the themes that also that I've had a lot of discussion around is the empowerment of women. Specifically around when a strong culture within a country or an environment showcases that men are supposed to be more powerful or generally play a powerful role, and you may have a coach who's in a female setting being put in a cultural environment where men are supposed to have the knowledge and the expertise, and the elderlies, all of that influences how we approach coaching at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that under this aspect there is a lot of implicit language and implicit aspect that are again cultural or might not, I don't know, around the power and the power of women, and how they want to show and to express themselves. So I agree with you. There is some really interesting aspect around that.
So, and tell me, I mean, this conversation is being held at this convention. Tell us more about the convention. I know that the African Council, the Executive Council, Coaching Council is you can find a coach, become a coach, grow as a coach. There's so many options that you tell us more about the African Council itself, and why this conversation now. So, what is the aim of this conversation?
So the council has the uniqueness of the council is its composition, is to be really looking at the continent and being a Pan-African council rather than a body that has many individual units in their own respective country. So what the council wants to do is not to become the ICF, like the International Coach Federation substitute, or any other professional body, but rather to leverage on reaching out from a continental place, and being able to access coaches and to talk about coaching in South Africa as well as in Nigeria, or in Accra, in Ghana, or in Tanzania, and that's very much of the aim. So our composition of the council is really reflecting that, with members that are from Nigeria. Some are from Zimbabwe. We have people from South Africa. We have people from Malawi. So the board member really also reflect that diversity of the continent. The other, and the idea of the convention was very much to see if over the 3 days, so it's a virtual convention that will happen on the 3rd of March, the 24th of March, and the 14th of April, for 4 hours, and all starting at 13 hours GMT. And we have invited people from inside the continent to reflect that diversity that we have on the continent around executive coaching, but also outside. And it's not only coaches. It's not a convention that is for coaches. It's a convention that is for people that are curious about coaching and curious about coaching in Africa. So we have some great keynote speakers that are joining us for the convention. I mean, on the first day of the convention, we do have Tim Chabalala that is speaking, with the CEO of Standard Group Bank Group. We have Fred Swaniker. Also, we have maybe many people in South Africa will know about Dumi Magdalela. Do people know about Ubuntu coaching? Maybe not in other parts of Africa. So I think it's really important that we talk more about what we're doing on the continent, and to hear more about what leaders want to have, and to, in terms of support for coaching. So that's the idea, to have this dialogue going on. But we have also people from outside of Africa that are joining us. So Professor Philip Rosinski is someone who's like absolutely passionate around culture, and he will bring us all his experience. So we're very much looking forward to have him. We have, as I mentioned, Dr. Carol Pemberton, but we have other people, David Clutterberg, Professor David Clutterberg. So we really want to have an inclusive conversation here.
Absolutely, yeah. So, Sophie, one of the and I always ask this around coaching. Why do you think more now than ever before, coaches are such a necessity for success to the world and to Africa as a continent? What do you think? Why do you think we need coaches? We need more people. We need to be having these conversations. Why do you think it's such an important role?
So my personal point of view would be, this year even more than ever before, we need coaches to help to explore our blind spot and ensure that we have sounding boards. So I think I share with you that my first encounter with coaching was later on in my career. I had already been an executive and led big teams. But when I discovered coaching, I realized how much I've missed out not having a coach when I was a leader.
Mm.
And I think the first time was probably one big step is like where a coach is such a value is when we move from one level to the other. So to give you an example is when you have you are leading a technical function and you moving. I remember becoming an managing director of a non-for-profit, and suddenly realizing that I can't rely on my technical expertise.
Yeah.
Now I will have to be inclusive. I will have to work with people that know more or better or are younger, arrive with different ideas. And I remember, and it's probably the closest of a coach I had, but a discussion with somebody that says like where we were talking about this need to be open-minded, to be inclusive, to be, but also this aspect of not being afraid of being vulnerable, because that would allow other to be and lead better. So I think that was big one. Another aspect is sometimes we feel so lonely. I was speaking with one of my clients this morning, and we were looking at the coaching objective, and we were looking at like leading a big function and all virtual. Is how do you sense what's the more systemic approach? What is happening in other parts of the team, and how are we in connection with our intuition? That's another aspect that really a coach can offer, to be more to look at the whole person and to make sense of the intuitive part. I think it's also an important part.
Yeah.
I think that leading virtually currently it's tiring. I think it's we don't realize how quickly the boundaries are blur now between personal life and work life. I'm shocked to see how often people look at their work in the evening and go back, and they bring flexibility, but at the end it's huge amount of being connected all of the time, and having that space with a coach where we can just pause and not be judged, and having the space to reflect and take a little bit of distance from our computer and our screen for an hour, even though it's virtual coaching most of the time, still is time to pause, time to reflect, and time to make decision with that space.
Yeah.
So I think it's hugely important, more than ever.
Yeah, as you speak, I'm just making notes as you speak, and I think one of the trainings that I've recently put together for a large insurance company is specifically around boundaries and leading to confidence. And I think it speaks to this being virtually available. We we sometimes don't set the boundaries in place for us to be able to just feel okay and look after ourselves a little bit more. And I think the next sort of leg to that is, how do we cultivate a bit of confidence within? And if I think of Africa, it's synonymous with people not or that sort of culture that you're supposed to be seen and not heard. And I think it's such a relevant conversation, because the many a times that I've spoken to people and individuals, just asking them, well, do you know how to cultivate confidence? Do you know where confidence comes from? And a lot of people don't. So from a coach's perspective, you kind of see, it's so necessary for people to be able to have these boundary conversation and having someone to reflect with, and really seeing those blind spots that without them, we might be failing miserably at something, and we don't even know that we might be, right?
I really like this aspect of confidence, and in relation, I would put it in relation to vulnerability, and it's like
Yes.
what do you need to allow, what permission do you need to give yourself
Yes.
to to face your vulnerability and therefore build some confidence around that. I think it's important. But you speak about confidence. I'm always amazed how organizations in Africa are not even confident that they have good coaches in Africa, and that they feel like they need to bring people from abroad or from outside of the continent.
Yes.
And when I get people that contact me and saying like, oh, is there coaches in Africa? And she's like, yeah, and there is good coaches in Africa. And so, and that's what, when we say we want to be seen and heard. Yes, we need to be seen and heard. And we need to tell the world that there is good coaches in Africa.
And I think that's what leads to the whole point of the convention as well, is, you know, to have that voice and say, no, actively, there are coaches here. I mean, you know, I think of the show that we're on right now, and I've connected with most people from Africa, and had the opportunity to really connect with many people in Kenya, a few in Zimbabwe and Zambia, Mozambique, and you know, like the wisdom that comes out of Africa. I sit in awe and I listen to it. I think, wow, you know, this is such beautiful, beautiful information. Everybody should hear it. So it's fantastic that we're actually having a platform where we can actually have this conversation and invite anyone who wants to listen in and sort of go, this is happening. This is happening next week.
Yes.
Fantastic.
It is. Yes, it is happening next week. And as I mentioned, the different date on the 20. So it is happening on the 20. I don't want to tell you bad dates. Sorry, 3rd of March, 24th of March, and 14th of April.
Okay, so 3rd of March,
24th of March,
4th of March,
and 14th of April. And it's still time to register. Just come and join us. Absolutely.
Fantastic. So, Sophie, I mean, obviously, I'm going to get all of this information, but if people want to go and click on it, and where's the easiest for them to do that, to find out more?
So you need to type www.convention.aeccouncil.com.
Convention.aeccouncil.com.
Yes.
Fantastic. And so then you can just register, you'll get sent a link, obviously, and then we just
yes, absolutely. And you will be taken to the community portal. We have great partners that will also, I mean, you will be able to explore also our website and I think find what you need.
Fantastic. Sophie, to wrap it up, what do you want to leave people out there to know about the African Executive Coaching Council? What message do you have for people just listening into to today's conversation?
I think that what I really would like for this convention is to be the start of a dialogue between people on the continent and with people outside of the continent, to talk about how coaching can support leaders and organizations to meet their challenge, to meet their needs, and also to be better leaders, and to with confidence, as you said, to be able to know what are their strengths and what do we have on the continent to offer. I think that it's really important that we get out of that sense that we are less and there is always better somewhere else, and to say actually we have so much to offer from this part of the continent about our understanding of life and our how do we want to do it. So it is a dialogue. It is something that we want to do together. It is something that we want to happen every 2 years, that it becomes familiar, and we want to challenge the blueprint.
Absolutely. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sophie Bruas, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being and taking the time to chat to me today. Guys, if you want to go and check it out, it's convention.aeccouncil.com. The times are there. I'm on the website right now. You can book your tickets. happening on the 3rd of March, 24th of March, and the 14th of April coming up this year, guys. Go and check it out. Different times that you can set up here, and you see that they have available for dates. And yeah, all you have to do is be part of this conversation. Sophie, thank you so much, and thanks for chatting.
Thank you very much, Kevin.
Have a wonderful
good day.
Cheers. Cheers for now. Bye-bye.